So yes, we from East Coast Research authored an initially coverage note on BlinkLab in February of this year. So and we can distribute the report after lunch in case you haven't read it. So we're very excited by BlinkLab's story. We think that the investment thesis is very strong and it's actually underpinned by several robust factors. Since we published a report in February of this year, the stock has already gone up effectively 100%. And we think that there's also quite a bit of upside left. We published a report when the stock price was 27 cents. It's around 50 cents now, and our target price was $1.74. That valuation itself was premised on a number of very conservative factors, which I'll get into in a bit. Also, supporting, in terms of near-term catalysts, there are also a number of near-term milestones that BlinkLab is either in the course of achieving or will achieve soon, which will also add momentum to the stock. So, as we all know, the BlinkLab is currently successfully well underway in its FDA 510 study on its autism offering in the US, and it's also progressing well in terms of further developing its commercialization of its ADHD offering in collaboration with research partners. So the ADHD offering is the secondary offering, and the main offering is the autism offering, which BlinkLab is focusing primarily on right now. So we like the stock for a number of reasons, and I'll just quickly cover a few of them, and then Brian will go deeper into the company's actual dynamics. So, it's a great management team. But basically, the company was founded and is run by Tier 1 scientists and experts in their field. People from Tier 1 academic institutions such as Princeton in the US and also Erasmus in the Netherlands. So these guys are experts in neuroscience, AI, and software. The company's kind of core strategy is has been conceptualized by people who know what they're doing, so which always helps. And additionally, in terms of the commercial kind of strategy, Brian is a seasoned industry veteran in this space. He's had a successful exit before, well, at least one successful exit. I'm sure he's had more than one. But and additionally, Anton and Jane also bring aboard a lot of other additional commercial experience. So quality management helps. This is what we look for as financial analysts. So definitely ticks the box there. The next thing I think, which is very important, is that there's a limitation to the risk and cash outflow that BlinkLab will experience going forward. And in this way, it's positioned competitively in a much more unique and stronger position to other companies. For example, I come across a lot of investment proposals from tech sector companies who will still continue to bleed a lot of cash going forward because they're still amidst the process of developing their product. So they're still burning a lot of cash on R&D. Similarly, with many junior miners, these guys need to raise a lot of cash for drilling programs in order to expand or discover their maiden resources. BlinkLab's story is different. Prior to the company being actually IPOing in 2024, the company had already spent more than 10 years developing its technology. So it had actually IPO'd after it was already a successful company. It had already raised seed capital and pre-IPO funding, and it already achieved a number of successful clinical trial results. So these things matter. They kind of limit the downside risk going forward. So this is also one of the key reasons underpinning our strong investment thesis for the company. The third thing is, I think AI these days is a very kind of it's a kind of a catch-all buzzword phrase. Very few companies have proven an ability to commercially and effectively use AI to solve real-world problems. BlinkLab is using AI to solve a very important real-world problem. I mean, the app's ability to more effectively and earlier diagnose ADHD and autism, I mean, this will help the healthcare system in a number of different ways. The resultant benefits to patients, their families, and the wider healthcare system is quite significant. So in that way, BlinkLab's app is solving a very important healthcare problem. I think also, it's very important to also, as part of BlinkLab's business model, to highlight the kind of virtuous cycle nature of AI and its software play. So with BlinkLab, if you compare the company's core technology to its key competitors in the US, who, by the way, already have FDA approval. So BlinkLab's diagnostic kind of effectiveness is notably better than those two key competitors. it's able to detect autism in young children at much earlier ages and at higher levels of accuracy than these two key competitors. And not only that, its app has also other benefits, such as it's faster to use, it's more convenient to use, it doesn't require any cumbersome hardware, it's a simple to use software app, and it can be used outside of clinical settings. So these things ensure that more people, more patients will be kind of incentivized to use BlinkLab's app. And the way AI works is that the more people that use your app, use your offering, the more biomarker data that your app collects. Given, in time, the more biomarker data that BlinkLab accumulates, it'll be able to further fine-tune its AI diagnostic models, leading to even better rates of diagnostic accuracy, which is what we've been seeing with BlinkLab's accuracy rates, which have been improving over time. So this will also help BlinkLab in terms of its ability to, in future, monetize into other different areas of psychiatric kind of disorders. BlinkLab will be able to enter into adjacencies such as dementia, for example, which is part of the strategy. So it's actually a very unique aspect of BlinkLab's business model, and I think it's kind of not really appreciated in its current valuation. So there's a strong upside there. And the last thing, I just want to briefly highlight a few things about the valuation. So our target price is $1.74, and compared to the current stock price, which is around 50 cents, it does look much higher. But the actual valuation itself was premised on a number of conservative factors. For example, we completely ignored the opportunity that BlinkLab can address in Europe. We only focused on the opportunity in the US, even though BlinkLab's kind of conception is in Europe, right, from the Netherlands. So they have strong contacts there. We also delayed the revenue ramp for both the autism and ADHD offering by a year each, in order to be conservative. The pricing that we use in our financial model is lower than BlinkLab's actual pricing plan, which itself is lower than other competitors' offerings in the US, or much lower than other competitors' offerings in the US, which BlinkLab has shown to have a more kind of effective product against. Additionally, in terms of commercialization risk, BlinkLab, as we all know, is a pre-revenue company. So to account for that risk in my financial model, I reduced the autism kind of revenue projections by 30%, and I reduced the ADHD revenue projections by 70%. So the kind of the valuation is premised on a number of kind of very reasonable factors. So we think that this is a story to kind of continue to watch and get involved with. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, Brian will get into deeper details about the company.
Thank you very much for it. I'm interested to know a bit more about what you think your market is and who is your buyer. Is it GPs, or is it the AMA, or is it teachers, or is it parents? I don't get a sense of who you're targeting.
It's a good question. I think for these type of questions, it's best if Brian or Anton answer them. I mean, we did the financial report on the company, but Brian, who's the chairman, will address this. There is the company is solving a very strong problem in partnership with T1 kind of healthcare organizations in the US. So, Brian, maybe you can address this question better, I think.
The kind of the user, the thing about the FDA is they don't like Dr. Google. In fact, they hate Dr. Google. They don't want you diagnosing yourself. But what they want is a tool that can assist the doctor in making the diagnosis. They're interested in that. So even though this technology would be fantastic as a for parents to use on their child, that would be terrific, but it won't come with the FDA approval label. So it needs to be approved by a doctor. And we work that. Yep, we'll work. So, so the end user then effectively is the GP. And the GP is the referral source to the specialist. So I just want to thank Raoul for that really lovely introduction, and also to Ricky, who I've just met for the first time. I did actually have a really fabulous lunch in Sydney a couple of months ago, which East Coast Research organised, and it was just a pleasure to see a room very similar to this one, really packed, and a lot of passion and investors. And this one may have been exclusively for BlinkLab, but it was a really good event, and I appreciate East Coast Research in putting your eye on it, Raoul particularly. I thought your introduction was so good, I was saying to the people sitting at my table, maybe I shouldn't have to say anything. I'll only stuff it up. So, question?
Yes, I was the original question about market, and you indicated that the real clients for this is the GP. So do you have any association or agreement with the GPs Association in Australia?
That would be premature, because the reality is we're doing clinical trials, and I'll get into the studies that we're doing, but without an FDA approval, or in Australia we call it the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Association, without that it's bullshit, right? It actually has to work. And it only works if those regulatory bodies say that they work. Now, if they do work...
You don't have the GPs currently committed to any kind of trials across Australia?
No, and we're not ready to engage with them because we don't have the results of our regulatory study. That said, though, that would be a great question to ask, but we're not there yet. And that's why there's tremendous upside in this stock, I should tell you all. So, with that said, let me get into this. So, I just want to start off by saying we've all got one of these, a smartphone. I mean, every single person in this room would have a smartphone, and it is a really cool piece of technology. I mean, if you look at the basics of it, it's got a screen, it's got a microphone, it's got a forward-facing camera, it's got a computer behind it, and it's got everything you need as a digital healthcare solution for things that can diagnose stuff or even screen for stuff. My previous company, ResApp Health, used signatures and the sound of a cough to diagnose a respiratory disease on a smartphone. During COVID, thank God for that, that came along, and we thought maybe we could diagnose COVID rather than just pneumonia, asthma, bronchitis. And Pfizer came out of the blue. In fact, Apple came before Pfizer and signed an NDA with us initially, and it was only because Pfizer came in and moved faster that they ended up buying the company. And in fact, the offer they made, which was a very lucrative one, was subject to unanimous board recommendation. So I was really boxed. I really did want to sell the company to Apple, but I couldn't. But you know what, Pfizer's not too bad. So that was a terrific outcome. So BlinkLab is even a greater opportunity. So let me get into it. So just in terms of a corporate snapshot, we did do a capital raise not long ago. I mean, as Raoul mentioned, we only listed in April last year. We've only done one capital raise, and it was really massively oversubscribed. We actually did the raise in about 2 hours. So we had about 15 million came in. We only took 7.7 million, which was the maximum we could take. We actually introduced our first fund manager onto the register and a whole bunch of very high net worth family offices out of Hong Kong. The CEO, Hank, and I were in Hong Kong the week before, you remember Freedom Day with Donald Trump and his tariffs and so forth. You can imagine raising money in the week after Freedom Day. And if you recall, that Friday that he announced it was the biggest fall in the share market for the year. And then on the Monday, when we actually planned to go to the market to raise money, was even a bigger fall. So we waited a further 2 weeks and just decided, you know what, we've put in the hard work, I think we'll be rewarded. We had Westar Capital out of Perth and Alpine Capital out of Sydney do the raise, and it was fantastic. And we did the raise at 30 cents, and we promptly jumped to, what, 50 something. I think we hit 58 cents. You've got to expect some profit taking in the course, so we're now sitting in the low 50s. But there is significant news flow that's going to come, and I think that's what's going to drive the share price. I've got a really good team. Hank, you haven't had the opportunity to meet Hank. Maybe some of you have when he's been to Australia before. He's a really impressive guy. He did his PhD in neuromedicine at Princeton University, albeit that he's from the Netherlands. Anton Uvarov has been my business partner for many years. We've floated this, our third company together. And he found the opportunity and brought it to the ASX rather than letting the VCs out of Europe take this thing and keep it private, and give them the opportunity for all the investors here to capitalise on this fabulous opportunity. Jane Morgan, of course, you know, what a great girl she is. She's organised some amazing things. We had a great, I should tell you, we were in BioShares in Hobart a week before last. What a great event. And the meetings that we had were with the highest level investors at that conference, and just terrific. So there's a lot of eyes on this stock. That thing I can absolutely guarantee you. There's a lot of eyes on this stock in terms of the milestones that we have, and that's part of the job. Companies out there, in my long experience, they do really good things, and it's a bit like a tree falling in the forest. It's like nobody knows, no one's watching, no one cares. I can assure you that in the case of BlinkLab, there are lots of very big, important eyes on this stock, but we have to deliver. And the milestones are coming, and I'm going to get into greater detail about that. So in terms of what is autism, I mean, it's a neurodevelopment condition that affects the way the brain processes sensory information. You guys generally aware of that? Who knows? There's something in the water. The rates of autism is going up. It's an incredible expense on our society, and it has a major impact. And you can see in terms of the economic burden, this is only going up. And this is just in the United States, showing 700 odd billion in 2024. I don't know what the figure is for this year, but I suspect it's probably doubled by now. And that's certainly the rate of incline there. In terms of Australia particularly, you'd be surprised to know that 35% of our NDIS is spent on diagnosing and treating autism. It's the single biggest expenditure. I actually love Australia. I mean, I love Australia. We are a really generous society that we would put so much money into looking after those with disabilities. And it's not indifferent to the UK and Germany and the United States. They're spending a lot of money on this, and the governments are picking up the bill, which means it's the taxpayers. And if you've got a technology that acts as a screening test to diagnose children at a much younger age, and remember this line that I'm going to give you right now, because I'm going to use it again later, which is the earlier you could diagnose anybody with anything, the better the outcome for that patient. And particularly in the case of autism, because a lot of those billions are being spent on looking after the child as the child grows into an adult, and the caring costs. But if you can diagnose them early, you can introduce treatment, and the treatment then affects the way their whole lives develop and reduces the financial burden on our most generous society. So please keep that in mind. They say that children should be screened for autism between 18 and 24 months. It's just not possible. The burden on the medical system is so great, it gets clogged up. To your question over there, sir, the GPs are just clogged with inquiries from parents about the child, and then that ends up most likely to see a paediatrician or a psychiatrist. Most of these kids turn out to be fine. There's nothing wrong with them. You know, they're not talking yet, they're not crawling yet, they're not walking yet, whatever it might be. They catch up. For the parents in the room know that they might have had some concerns, but they weren't warranted. Yes?
Just a comment on that. I think in this day and age, autism is sort of, for want of better words, flavour of the month, and which is a really good thing. But I know I was autistic as a child. I know I had ADHD. I didn't know it then. I know it now with all the information that's about. But I think I disagree with the slide that says the rate of autism is going up. It's just the awareness of autism is going up. It's always been there.
I agree. We're able to diagnose it better, but the truth is you're not our target market, because there's actually not much we can do for you in the sense of it. It's because we want to get them at an earlier age, right? And then you can introduce treatment, and then that's it. Do you mind if we leave questions more towards the end?
I was just going to make a comment, not a question.
Okay.
I think we're all on the autism spectrum, one way or the other.
Yes.
Everyone. Your target market is at the extreme.
It's not actually at the extremes. We want to be able to screen people. I would disagree with you that we're not all on the spectrum. I have heard that comment, but I don't think we all are. I think most people are actually what we call neurotypical, right, which is not autistic. There are plenty that are on the lower end of the spectrum, and they may need mild intervention. But we are clogging the system with undue cases of autism and or ADHD that is absolutely stopping those that actually need the formal care from getting that care. And that is where I think BlinkLab has a role, and I think it will be taken up by governments all over the world and subsidised by them. And by the way, I want to charge as much as we possibly can. I'm a capitalist, true and born, okay? But I want the government to subsidise the cost of this because it will reduce the cost of healthcare for those countries. And as I mentioned, this is a topical thing. The Australian newspaper, which I do read, they have a story on an NDIS pretty much every day. So I've already covered this largely. It starts with the parent. They think there's something wrong with their child. Most of the time there's nothing wrong with your child. God knows I went through that with my own son. My wife was taking him to the GP all the time. And I was like, Tash, there's nothing wrong with him. He's always got a snotty nose. Who cares? I have a father. My father's a doctor, by the way. So unless I actually had a broken arm, I wouldn't be going to anywhere. He was pretty strict on that. But we certainly know that the GP is the gateway to a specialist. Okay, so you're not going to see a specialist until you've seen a GP first, and the GP is not going to use this unless it's regulatory approved. That I can guarantee you, right? So we have to do the clinical trials, and the financial support that we've had from our investors, and I thank you all, is what's giving us the ability to do those clinical trials so we can go and get the regulatory approval, which is what we need. And the market we're targeting is in the United States. I don't make no excuses of it. The Australian market is late in the stage for us, right? The first primary market is the US. And as I mentioned earlier, late diagnosis leads to worse outcomes. Early diagnosis is the key. And so that's what we introduce. So we want to bring in the same point of call. The parents are concerned, and then they see the GP, and the GP says, right, well, we've got this new technology. And the key here is that the parents get to do the test at home. But as I mentioned right at the first point that I got up here, does anyone remember? Where does the diagnosis go to? It goes to the doctor. It ain't going to the parent. It will not get approved for that. So we're not going to submit for that. We'll be submitting as a tool to assist a doctor to make a clinical diagnosis. That means that even though the technology, the app says that this child is autistic and may even be able to say where on the spectrum that the child is, that's our ambition here, but it will still be, okay, I'm observing and I'm thinking, and I'm going to refer this up the chain. Now imagine what that will do to the backlog when you say to the parent, look, just give it some more time. I know they're not crawling yet or not talking, but let's just see how we go, rather than just clogging that system up as it's presently being done. And that is the standard right now. This is just a short one. I don't know, have we got audio with this or not? Probably not. So this is just a quick demo as to how does it actually work. It's just a smartphone. I explained all the features on the smartphone. The child is watching an animation. It could be bluey, it doesn't really matter. Whatever focuses the child's attention. And it's providing a whole bunch of visual and audio stimulus, and the forward-facing camera is analysing the child's face to see if that facial reflex, there is sound, excellent. So that facial reflex is being invoked. Now the facial reflex is much like the knee reflex. You cannot hide it. If I whack you, gentlemen, on the knee, see that? His leg just went like that. That is a natural reflex, and the facial reflex is exactly the same. So that's what this technology invokes. Now, I'll try this. I don't know if the volume's up loud enough, but we'll give it a go. So this is a neurotypical child, and it's going to be given one of a many gamut of tests that this technology is introducing, so he will be startled by something. All right, so that was very soft. Doesn't matter. So if it was louder, you would have heard a beep, and you would have seen the child blink. Now we call that a neurotypical response. Okay, now let's introduce something a little different. This will be what I would describe as a double beep. It's actually a soft sound in front of a loud noise. And this is not something we invented. This has been published in research papers going back at least 50 years, the facial reflex. So what happens with this neurotypical child? Now this, by the way, is slowed down. There are, in fact, if you keep quiet, you can hear 2 beeps, but in fact, you will hear, in terms of normal speed, just 1. But it's actually 2. But how the brain interprets that is different for someone who's neurotypical. Right, so you may have not noticed then, but the child did not blink. Why? I actually don't know. I'm not a scientist. But I do know that that's what happens. If you put 2 beeps together, milliseconds apart, sounds like 1, it's actually 2. The brain interprets it differently, and there's no facial reflex. And that is neurotypical behaviour. Now let's take a child who is autistic, and let's see what happens then. So again, standard, blink. Okay, now let's put in the double beep. Blinks anyway. Wow, that's really cool. And imagine the technology is all on the phone. It's like it's a perfect tool to capitalise on this enormous, scalable technology where it could be used everywhere, and that is the fundamentals of it. But it's not quite that simplistic, because I'll get into more detail. So it is actually more than just what I mentioned. It's evoking facial reflexes, but there's actually probably a 500 little tests that are involved in the study in terms of analysing the face and the stimulus that provide. I'm just explaining it in very simplistic terms, but it's more than that. It's actually all of these things. So these are all the studies that we've done. You can see that the phone is actually focusing on the child. Screen avoidance, postural stability, head rotations, headphone touches, all is being analysed. Again, mouth openings, pupil range, all this stuff is all part of the complexity of the application in being able to come to this most accurate diagnosis. And this is pretty accurate. I mean, this is by far the most impressive slide in this presentation. These are the 441 patient study. Can I tell you, most drug companies would be envious of being able to do a 441 patient study. Think about the statistical significance of this and getting a result, a sensitivity of 91% and a specificity of 85%. Wow. That's just on a smartphone. There's no human intervention in this. This is just a tool. And the doctor would look at that and go, that's pretty accurate. I'm comfortable in being able to refer someone. Now, this is not the final result. This is a study that we completed and published. By the way, that's probably the reason why the share price hit 58 cents from a 20-cent start when we published that, because this is remarkable, okay? And we are looking to at least do if we can do as good as that in this FDA trial, I will be beyond ecstatic. And by the way, you can never get 100%. Does anyone know why 100% accuracy is not achievable? Anyone? Come on.
Accepted tolerance levels?
No. One more guess. Come on.
Measurability.
No. It's because it's not 100% accurate in the doctors. The doctors are going to make a diagnosis here. How are they going to do that? It's not a precise science. So anyone who claims 100% accuracy in this test is absolutely full of crap. Okay, it's not possible, because we are comparing it to a neuroscientist, a pediatrician, a psychiatrist. You are never going to get 100% accurate, because the test can never be 100%. And the FDA knows that. So, now this is a really also important slide. This is talking about whether or not some things sound really fanciful and you go like, wow, that sounds amazing, right? But would it actually ever get approved? And when I first heard this story about BlinkLab and the opportunity, I was a bit, hang on. Is the FDA ever going to approve such a thing? Is it even approvable? After all, they're scientists. They can look at a smartphone and go like, what, this smartphone's going to do a better job than me after my many years studying at Princeton or whatever it might be and as a neuroscientist? And the answer is yes, because Cognoa got what's called a de novo approval, which means a first in class. It means the FDA looked at this brand new sort of technology and said, yes, we're prepared to approve this. Fantastic, because that opens the door for us as a 510K. But as you can see, our results are far superior in what we've published than anything that's been approved to date. Okay, so that's an important thing to know, that the technology is approvable. And this one just shows here that the autism diagnosis is actually, the child is responding to in the case of autism, they are responding more to the second beep, whereas in ADHD, they're responding more to the first beep. Now, what does that tell you? What a wonderful thing this is. If you think about a drug, what's the name of that drug that's doing weight loss now? There used to be a diabetes drug. Ozempic, thank you. What a wonderful thing for Ozempic. They got this drug that would have already sold in the billions, and then they found another use for it. And now they can sell it because it's already safe, right? So they can now sell it for weight loss. Even bigger market. How much money do you think the farmer's making out of that? And here we have a technology that's already demonstrated to be working for autism, but it also works for ADHD. And ADHD is a market 10 times bigger than autism. It's the same technology, the same app, the same smartphone. So that is the bigger opportunity for BlinkLab, also going after the ADHD market. And this one here, I'll just mention briefly, it's showing that in kids who have ADHD, they take this horrible drug called Ritalin. It's like speed for kids, and I don't like it. But nonetheless, they do get diagnosed and treated with Ritalin. And you can see here that this technology was able to work out what the optimal point post-treatment was in terms of getting the benefit of the drug, which in this case was 2 to 3 hours, using the smartphone app. Big Pharma are really interested in this slide because this is something that shows the efficacy of the drug that they're actually prescribing. Just the team, I've already mentioned Hank and Anton. It's a really good team. I had the privilege of going to the Netherlands a few weeks ago and meeting the whole team. A really impressive bunch of kids. I mean, they are kids, really. Most of them are in their 20s. They're all neuroscientist graduates or PhD students from Erasmus University in the Netherlands, and they are dedicated on the project that we're doing. And the board I've mentioned. And the IP. The IP is really a key slide. I'm going to make this my last slide because I want to open to questions, but the IP is really critical because when it came to the acquisition of ResApp for Pfizer, let me tell you, R&D. You all know that R&D stands for research and development, and you're all wrong. It doesn't. It stands for replicate and duplicate. That's what it means. And what they found with ResApp was that the technology was licensed from UQ, and UQ, they're good at some things, but one thing they're really good at is IP, to make sure that this cannot be stolen. And I'm going to make a value judgment here that this technology came from Princeton University in New Jersey. I think they're pretty good at it. So if and when we get to the point of the potential for acquisition or licensing deals, that is the one they're going to go to first. Just like Pfizer, just like Apple. Look at the IP. And with that, I want to thank you so much for listening to me. I love coming to Melbourne. What a great restaurant. And I appreciate your time, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you. Yes.
Brian, what scalability does your technology using the auditory and the visual stimuli that apply through the phone, what other situation could that be applied to, other medical conditions?
That's a good question. So I'm intrigued by this potential because we're talking about an app that diagnoses a neurological condition. Now, we've focused on autism particularly and also ADHD. But there are other things like dementia. How about depression? Eating disorders, lots of neurological things. Now, why aren't we going after them? And the answer to that is because we just don't have the money. I mean, I could dilute the buggery out of this company if I wanted to. I could raise the money. There's more than enough money out there wanting to invest. But we need to focus on one or two things, because I want to leave Big Pharma or Big Tech the opportunity to do what they did with my last company and says, we'll buy you because we can value add. We can take this to the next level with our level of funding. And then they wouldn't want to buy us unless they could do more with it. So yes, dementia, depression, a whole range of neurological conditions could potentially be used here, but I don't have the funds, I don't have the resources, and I want to make sure that it does this very well.
Have you patented the technology?
Yes. In fact, we already have a collaboration with Erasmus University in the Netherlands for dementia, and they are doing all the research, spending all the money. We don't have to spend a dime, and we get all the IP back.
So Brian, it's a tool for doctors, but can a parent download it from the App Store?
Yes, but the technology, the diagnosis will go to the doctor, not to the parent.
They can do their own Dr. Google at home.
Well, they could, but I mean, the GP will call and say, look, yeah, I'm seeing some indications here. I think we should elevate this.
Yeah, Brian, like from a funding model, just that you talk about you don't want to dilute this. I mean, you've got to tighten our register.
I'm just going to grab my glass. Jane won't like it, but...
No, you like this question because I think there's upside to the stock. I mean, you've got like 125 mil shares on issue. It's pretty tight. I'm just saying, like from a funding model, I mean, equity debt, I mean, grant funding, would you go after grant funding? Like you talk about subsidies from the government. At the minute, that NDIS is getting raped and pillaged. You've got 48 billion in the NDIS, of which I heard something about on Sky News, 1 in 6 children, boys, are on the NDIS under autism. Mate, you've got the time perfect for this, right? And for this stop. It's more, why wouldn't you go after grant funding as well and get government a foot in the door in the stock?
The grant funding sounds a bit socialist to me.
Well, it's private public stuff.
I'm just not socialist in attitude. I like capitalism.
The government knowing who you are.
No, the government does know who we are, and yes, there's grant funding available. Grant funding is not easy. There's a whole bunch of hoops you've got to jump through, and you've got resources that you have to apply to get grant funding. And my attitude is, why can't I just do a good job in running the company and promoting the company and go and tap them when I need and do a placement? And we've only done one. And by the way, we don't need to raise any more money. I'm not ruling it out ever, but we're well funded for some time. Sorry, Ricky.
Okay, Rahul and I were discussing yesterday, and I think you can probably confirm it for us and should help answer your question to a two-part. As you grow the study scale, more kids, more people come in, the costs are not equally proportional to that, because this is just an app at the end of the day, it's a technology. So you're not raising every 6 months like a lot of the other companies, and I'm guessing if you can confirm to that, given you can grow the scale without blowing out the costs, given the model, the business model of the company.
Well, I mean, I think that if we show through this pilot study, in fact, I'm going to refer a bit more to the pilot study because I didn't get to do that, but the pilot study is really why you're all sitting here. Now, you may not know it, but you are, because the pilot study is really a really important milestone that's due next month. Yeah. So let me explain why we're doing this pilot study. I had a formative experience with ResApp Health where we embarked on an FDA trial of 1,000 kids to diagnose respiratory disease in an emergency ward at 3 major US hospitals: Massachusetts General Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and Texas Medical Center. You couldn't get bigger partners than that. And ResApp share price was flying. At one point, we're up 2,500%. Think about that as a return. And I did that. And then we came to the end of the trial and it was a disaster. In fact, you can only get 2 results, I thought. You could get a good result or a bad result, but then I found out you could get a third type of result, which is a no result. And we got a no result, which I didn't anticipate. But what happened was really interesting, that because it was an emergency ward, they're busy places. and we're using a smartphone to collect respiratory cough sounds and be able to diagnose what's wrong with the person. And respiratory disease is a big problem. A lot of people coming through ER wards for that. But what they didn't count on was little kids. You know, I said earlier, don't work with kids or animals. Little kids, they were like coughing, but sometimes they wouldn't cough when you needed them to cough. So the nurse would say, you know, cough, like and then the kid, oh yeah, but the record button was already on. So it would end up being 2 people coughing, not 1. And of course the app's smart, but it wasn't that smart. So we ended up doing a 1,000 patient study for what ended up being a no result. Oh my God. The share price was just like that. And what a depressing moment. And the resilience of my team to come back as we did, to come back from that. So when we planned this original study, it was going to be a 1,000 patient study in the United States with no pilot study. But I was like, we need a pilot study, because we need to make sure that the protocols are being followed as they need to be followed. And so that is the reason why we're doing the pilot study. We are almost done. The results are coming out, and it's not a little one, by the way. There'll be over 200 patients in this pilot study. That's a big study. And if we get it right, as I hope we do, the confidence level in BlinkLab is going to be sky high. And all those big parties that I said that are looking and focusing on the stock, I expect they'll be piling in. Now, if we don't get the result, I hope, it may be because the protocols were not followed, and you'll all be thanking me, because we will be able to introduce changes to the protocols to make sure they are followed before we spend that big bucks on the main study. Okay? Yes?
Brian, thank you very much for your presentation, which I found very, very insightful.
Thank you.
My question is, what is your vision? Is your vision that this company, BlinkLab, should get to the point where somebody else can see that it's worth taking over to add value to? Or do you have a vision that within a reasonable time frame you will actually make a profit?
Okay, so I get that question a lot. I definitely, unashamedly sit in the former. Okay, maybe I'm not the right guy that takes you through the commercialization process. I would be happy to step back and say, if we're going down the commercialization route, that we introduce somebody who has those connections to build that thing up. And that's not my goal. I'm a big shareholder too, I might add. And I bought my shares. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars investing in BlinkLab. I believe in it. And my goal is to be acquired. But that doesn't mean that that's the way it will happen. I know that if we do our job right and we get those results, and I know we've got a great team and I know we've got a great technology, then I expect that we will be acquired, because I've been there and I know the eyes are on this stock. But if it doesn't go down that path, and I've seen it before, where boards reject takeover positions. They simply advise their shareholders, no, we can make more money going down the commercial route. I'm not that guy. I can tell you right now, I'll be against it, but that doesn't mean it's not an autocracy. You know, I'm a shareholder, I get a vote. I know that when ResApp got acquired by Pfizer, we only just got up. The target was 75% plus on a scheme implementation deed, and we got 76% in favour. So that deal almost didn't happen. So it's up to the shareholders to make that decision, not me.
So Brian, where's your probability? What's your probability call on FDA approval and also?
Oh, you know I can't answer that. I can tell you that I'm confident that the tech is good, that the trial results will be good, and that will lead to bigger and better things. But I couldn't give you a percentage. I won't be drawn on that.
You
Sorry.
If you had a few more vinos, but anyway, that's not.
Well, my glass is empty. Maybe, sir, you could maybe you could top me up. Thank you. Yes, Sean.
Yeah, in relation to
Hang on. I want to hear Sean's question.
Student says they'll tap sickle cell. Is there any age correlation that reaction to spectral disease? I'm at the developing trials of brain will change over time, and you're getting a reaction at a certain age group. And I know also from I used to come to Tally Digital, they used to have a gaming technology, and decisions you made playing the game dictated whether you had spectral disorder or not. You're trying this Blink technology, and people grow out of at the time. And I think also most spectrum disorders, psychiatrists between 8 and 12, they become apparent earlier. It's harder to pick earlier, which you're obviously targeting.
Yes.
Is there any age group disparity on your?
Well, actually, that's a good question. So there is a slide, but I didn't cover it. But in the previous presentation, I've just given it Techno. How's my glass coming? Oh, there. Thanks. So apparently I'm best with exactly one bottle, but not a drop more. So in answer to your question, Sean, there is a thing called masking. So adults are much better at masking autism symptoms than children. And interestingly, as I've learnt, that girls at any age, particularly young girls, are much better at masking the symptoms than boys, right? So this is, now when I say masking, I'm referring to the standard of care, which is basically a psychiatrist reviewing, giving you a score out of 10 on a table and adding it all up and then comes to a number. There is no masking with BlinkLab. This is a reflex. So you eliminate all of that. It certainly does. Now here's another interesting thing. I'm 54. I don't feel it, but I am. And I have a number of my male friends who I've known for 30 years, and they've been recently diagnosed with ADHD. Now, I'm thinking to myself, well, I mean, I know you. I mean, I always knew you had ADHD, right? But it's incredible how he feels about his diagnosis. It's important to him. And what I like about this from a commerciality thing, and it happened not long ago when another friend got diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm thinking, I like that. You know why? Because he's got money. He's got money to spend. It's not like the kids and rely on the parents. These are adults, and many of them professional adults. In fact, many of them are stockbrokers, Sean, so just watch out on that. But they are professionals, they got money, and they're willing to spend money to find out what is wrong with them. Now, what can you do for these people? I would suggest not much. Sorry, sir, over there. There's not much you can do, but I tell you what, there's still money to be made in diagnosing and making people feel more comfortable about their own skin.
Sorry, Brian.
Over here, yes.
You mentioned the US as your target market. What's the current process in terms of time frame, threshold for a diagnosis there right now?
The time frame to get diagnosed?
Well, just say you're a parent, for instance, in the US right now, and you think that
It's about 3 years. 3 years. And if you imagine that you may be presenting that child, say at the this is quite similar in Australia, by the way, same sort of numbers. They come in at the age of 3. They start the process. They get diagnosed at 6 or possibly 7. And I say to you all, what would have been the outcome for that child if their diagnosis was more, say, in the range of 3 or 4 versus 6 or 7? We're talking about the most formative years in this child's development. All those neuronal connections in their brain are happening. If you're going to introduce a treatment, you want to do it as early as possible, and then again look at the NDIS. Most of that 35% of the expenditure on NDIS is actually being spent on looking after people who are autistic but are adults, and home care and it's assisted living. That's all that comes to. So again, if you can diagnose early, introduce treatment, you can reduce that cost of healthcare. And you know what? That is really promotable.
Are you guys saying that your time frame's going to be shorter based on the...
It's 10 minutes.
Okay.
If I didn't make that clear? 10 minutes. Right? That's the difference. So it's disruptive, yes.
Have you thought about, or
I don't want to hog everything. I mean, I know that you want some lunch, but I'll get off the stage anytime you like.
Have you thought about, or have you been approached using your platform to just be an objective white label biomarker assessment tool?
You mean like a non-regulatory approved product?
Yeah. So
Yeah, let's say
universities, have they recognised the tool as accurate as it is, as the trials have pointed them out to be, and said, hey, will license this technology for our research purposes?
Well, actually, there's 3 partnerships right there.
Yeah, but have they looked to license?
No. We haven't looked to license. We're not going to license. That would be premature. I can assure you all, I'm a big shareholder. I want to maximise my investment. So we will do the deal when the deal is right to be done. And you know when the best time to do a deal is sort of what you've indicated, is when they come to you. I never approached Pfizer. I didn't approach Apple. I'll tell you a short thing that happened. I came home on Friday night in when was it? It was November 21. I'd been out with my mates, I'd had a few drinks. I'd come home, lying on the couch. I was just glad to be home, actually. It was a big night. And I look at my phone, check my messages, and I had an email that had just come through from a guy called Dan P. Mather, Vice President, Digital Healthcare, Pfizer, New York. And his email said, Brian, I have an urgent need to talk with you. Now, you might recall September 21 was smack bang in the middle of COVID. So, and WA just opened up. That's why I was a bit drunk. That's why I was so I was happy to be home after that. And I'm like, well, I've never spoken to anyone from Pfizer before, let alone this guy from New York. So I simply tapped a message back to this guy, and I said, if you like, we can talk right now. And I had my mobile phone number on my signature thing on the bottom of it, and then my phone rings like 10 seconds later. And I spoke to this guy for, I reckon, 5 minutes. He asked me a few high-end questions about what we're doing with diagnosing COVID on a smartphone. And I turned to my wife and I said, Natasha, I think I just sold ResApp to Pfizer. And that's exactly what happened 9 months later. So these are the sort of things that can happen from a company that does interesting stuff and that is attractive to the big end. I'm not telling you that is what's going to happen. I'm only giving you my ambitions, and because I've been there, and what a wonderful moment that was when I had that approach.
Your self-interest will make money for us.
Yep.
I am, and I have from experience. This is actually my 7th company, and the only time, I mean, I have made a lot of money over the years, but I can honestly tell you that I've only made money after my shareholders have made money. I'm the last to get out, right? I do want to get out, and I do want to make money at some point, but you guys, you have the wonderful benefit of being able to trade in and out of the stock. And part of the things that my team and I are doing for you is promoting, like we're doing today. We're creating liquidity in the stock. And don't come crying to me if you didn't get out at that point or this point. I'm not interested. What I'm interested in is creating liquidity in the stock and hopefully generating higher returns for my investors. And I am unashamedly focused on that. So,
in that process, do you actually have to raise money?
No. We have. Well, I think it was as of the end of June, I think we had $8 million in the bank. Our trials are already underway. They're well funded. Would I raise money if the right investor? Maybe, I might, but I'm not certain, and I don't know. But right now, we don't need any money. I want to say it's been a pleasure. I hope I get a chance to meet you all later. I might even try to come back, but Stewie, the organiser of Techno Invest, did say that I should tell you, everyone, please come next door, free drinks for the conference next door. And I do have to go, but I do appreciate everyone's time. And if you've ever got any questions about BlinkLab, my mobile number is on the back of every single announcement. So I always make myself available for any calls. And if you're not on the register, I certainly welcome you on the register. So thank you so much for your time.